Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, and welcome to another episode of Buha's Block. On today's show, we're going to be doing a scouting report and film breakdown of new Los Angeles Lakers forward Jake LaRavia. Lakers signed him to a 2-year, $12 million deal. He was their first call of free agency, and the Lakers used part of their $14.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception to sign LaRavia, who is repped by the same agents of Austin Reeves of note. So I want to break down LaRavia's game. He is not a household name. I know there was some surprise by the signing and a lack of understanding of just who he is and what type of player he is. So I want to break that down for you all. Before I break down his game in terms of strengths and weaknesses, just wanted to say that the more I've talked to people, the more I've looked into his game, watching a ton of film, poring over his numbers, and really thinking about what this Lakers team needs. I think he could do a lot of what DFS does and what DFS brought to the table, and also some things that DFS can't do. He's a better shooter than DFS. He's a better ball handler and passer. He's a better rebounder. And I think he's a better perimeter defender than DFS. I think DFS is better suited for small ball groups. He's a better interior defender, better rim protector. And he was a big factor in LA being able to thrive in small ball looks for the second half of last season with him playing next to LeBron James or Rui Hachimura. So I think from a positional standpoint, LaRavia is a big forward who could play either at the 3 or the 4. I actually think he's better defending wings and bigs than he is guards. But in terms of his role, I think he could slide in right now to that DFS role as the team's sixth man. And looking at the rest of the bench options, I think he's a better player than Gabe Vincent. I think he's a better player than Dalton Connect. I think he's a better player than Jordan Goodwin. And we'll see how the Lakers fill out their roster in free agency and trades, and that could impact his standing within the rotation. But for now, I view him as the sixth man currently and more likely the seventh man going into next season, again, depending on how the Lakers shuffle their roster and what their rotation ultimately looks like. But I know there was a lot of criticism and frustration with the DFS situation, and I get it. I was critical of it, and I still think it could have been handled better, both in terms of the Lakers being willing to pay him more and offer him more than just 2 years. I think he was a critical piece for their second half success. He also is one of Luka's favorite teammates and closest teammates that he's ever played with. So from my understanding, Luka was not thrilled about losing DFS, but I think looking ahead to next season, LaRavia can be this do-it-all Swiss Army knife type forward. He is a much better defender than I think people think he is. And that's partly because he played in Memphis and in Sacramento. It's also partly because of the way he looks. I think Austin Reeves dealt with a lot of the same stereotyping. When you see a white guy who could shoot the ball well, you don't think that they are often a good defender. But I have plenty of film on LaRavia being a good defender and keeping guys in front of him, playing passing lanes well, and he's a good rebounder as well. So we'll be breaking that all down, but just wanted to give my quick thoughts. I think this was a really solid signing by the Lakers. This could end up being a major steal based on the trajectory of LaRavia's game, the way he shot the ball last season, the different things he could do offensively, and again, holding his own defensively. I think there's a real chance he outperforms this contract and is more of like a non-taxpayer mid-level exception guy by the time his contract's up in a couple of years. But let's break down his game in greater detail. Let's look at his strengths and weaknesses. I wrote up a Jake LaRavia scouting report. I watched all of his film in Sacramento, every offensive possession, every defensive possession, and then also went through portions of his possessions in Memphis on both sides of the ball against elite teams just to get a better sense of how he plays against good competition. I took a bunch of notes and I broke it down into strengths and weaknesses. So for those watching on YouTube, you will see the player card I made for LaRavia. He's 23 years old, going to be 24 at the beginning of next season. He is 6'7", 235 pounds. I would classify him as a forward or a big wing. He has a 6'10" wingspan, signed a 2-year, $12 million deal, and he has played 3 years, first 2.5 years of his career in Memphis, and then the last half of last season in Sacramento. So in terms of strengths of LaRavia, he is a big floor spacing forward who shot 42.3% on threes last season. He can do a little bit of everything. He's grown into an elite catch and shoot threat, shot 43% on catch and shoot three-pointers last season, 45.5% on wide open catch and shoot threes last season. For some perspective, both of those numbers were better than Dalton Connect's percentages last year, and the catch and shoot number was better than Rui's. Rui shot better on wide open catch and shoot threes. He was at 48.6%. But LaRavia steps onto the floor, and I think he is the Lakers' best shooter if he can sustain his shooting from last season. He's a ball mover and a connecting piece. He's always looking to make the extra pass. He has a good sense with shot pass decisions. He is a confident, assertive shooter, but he doesn't force it. Off the ball, he is constantly moving and relocating. He's good with DHOs and giving goes and back cuts. He's just a high IQ player. He has some off the dribble juice. I think he's immediately LA's fourth best penetrator behind Luka, LeBron, and Austin. He's got a nasty Euro step, which allows him to create separation in the paint and around the rim. I would deem him a crafty, skilled finisher. He's a good rebounder, especially on the offensive end. If you look at his numbers on cleaning the glass, his teams always rebound the ball better offensively with him on the floor. He has a really good nose for the ball, whether it's tip-ins and putbacks or just securing loose balls around the free throw line and kicking it out, giving his team extra opportunities. He's really good with the possession game there. He is a solid multi-positional defender who can guard wings, can guard bigs, and even some guards. I think he does a good job squaring his shoulders, staying big with his arms, and using his strength, particularly his chest, to corral and contest guys on drives. So I think he does a good job pressuring the ball and funneling guys to different spots on the floor. He's a disruptive defender off the ball. He's active in passing lanes. He can strip guys on shots and dribbles and passes. Awesome at denying entry passes. I'm going to show you several clips of him denying Nikola Jokic, pulling an Alex Caruso and denying him entry passes, and did it with bigger players. I think that's one of his defensive strengths. And overall, just a high motor player who plays with physicality on both sides of the ball. He is tough and he rotates hard. He closes out aggressively at the three-point line. So I think there are very few weaknesses within his game. Again, he could do a little bit of everything. In terms of weaknesses, I had to nitpick a little bit. I had to dig deep to find some things that he could do better. And some of these things are more so just role player weaknesses and why he's more of a role player than like a star or a primary ball handler or creator. But in terms of weaknesses, he can struggle finishing through contact and oversize and length. If you look at some of his misses in the paint, oftentimes it'll be him driving into someone, not getting a call, or it'll be against a rim protector, a more athletic player. It doesn't have much of a mid-range game. If you look at just his field goal attempts, it's almost everything at the rim or at the three-point line. Per dunks and threes, he was in the 5th percentile in terms of mid-range efficiency. He has a high turnover percentage. He ranked 515th out of the 569 players that played in the league last season. That's bottom 10th percentile. He can turn the ball over against ball pressure and also when trying to make reads on drives. Again, I think he has good instincts with his passing and his IQ, but sometimes when he is getting downhill and attacking a rotating athletic defense, he can misread passing lanes or have the ball poke loose or stripped. Sometimes launches himself a little too far from the basket on layups and dunks, leading to awkward misses. There were several times he tried to dunk the ball and just missed it, or just lunge himself at the rim and miss runners or floaters. He was a subpar free throw shooter last season, shot just 67.8%, but through his first 2 seasons, shot 82.2%. So that could just be a random down season, and he bounces back next year. He declined from a career 45.9% corner three-point shooter over his first 2 seasons to just 37.8% last season as his three-point volume increased, particularly in the corners. Quick, athletic guards and ball handlers can blow by him. I think he's better leveraging his strength and IQ against wings and bigs. You just watch the film. When he's on guys like a James Harden or a Anthony Edwards or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those guys are just too quick and shifty for him. I think he is better against, honestly, like there's some impressive film with him against Kawhi and Jokic, and I think he's just better against like Triple J. He's just better against bigs and bigger wings who don't have that level of athleticism and speed. He's strong with quick feet, but he isn't an elite explosive athlete, so he will lose some physical battles against the game's best athletes, and as a perimeter player, he is going to be in some of those matchups. And then ultimately, like I think we could put a lot of these things aside. Like it doesn't really matter that he doesn't have a mid-range game. Turnover percentage is something that can be worked on, especially if he doesn't have the ball as much because it's funneling through Luka, LeBron, and Austin. You can work on the finishing. The free throw shooting can bounce back. Corner three-point shooting, he's going to get great looks with the Lakers, but really it comes down to he is unproven. He's only played 3 years in the league. He's yet to play in the playoffs, and it's unclear how he'd handle a top 7 or 8 role on a potential contender. So we can theorize about how he will handle the spotlight of being in LA. And we know role players, when they go through shooting slumps or they go through stretches of bad play, you're going to hear it on social media. You're going to hear it on podcasts and TV shows and just everywhere. And there's a lot of noise around role player performance. So we don't know how he's going to handle that. I would say that's arguably the biggest question with him, is just how he fares in this situation. It'll be the first time he has real expectations. It's going to be the first time he's locked into a rotation spot on a team with title aspirations. So curious about that. But I think overall, again, this is a shrewd move by the Lakers. I think LaRavia is someone who's going to outperform this contract. I think he's going to get a double-digit million per year contract after this contract is up. And I think he's a good value who can do a lot of the things that DFS did for LA while also doing some things that DFS couldn't quite do. He's younger, he's more athletic than the current version of DFS. So in some ways, like I would not be surprised if LaRavia has a better season next year in a full-time role than DFS does in Houston. Now I want to play some film for you guys. I have about 25 clips of LaRavia film on both sides of the ball, focusing largely on his strengths and what he can do, more so his capabilities, but I am going to be looking at some of the weaknesses, some of the shortcomings. First thing I want to look at is his ability to relocate, and I think that's an underrated skill for a catch and shoot player. So this first clip here, LaRavia is playing against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He drives, gets into traffic, kicks it back out, and then steps back to the three-point line and puts himself in DeMar DeRozan's line of vision to be ready for that three. So just to look at it again, he could have just stood there. He could have gone to a different spot on the floor, but he relocates to the left slot and he knocks down the three. Here's another possession where he relocates. Here he takes a step in and then pops back above the arc. Chet sinks down because of the drive, and then LaRavia is open for three. And then the final relocate three, you see Quentin Post, who's a 7-foot center, slow-footed, is guarding him, and he just darts out to the right corner and drills it. If we look at it again, he doesn't even need a screen here. Then I think it's important to look at his DHO ability, so his ability to function off of dribble handoffs. So you see here, Jonas Valanciunas catches a kick-out pass and immediately hands off to LaRavia into a step-back three. And he could drive off these DHOs as well. As you see here, he relocates to the top of the arc, goes into a dribble handoff, uses it sort of as a screen from Trey Lyles, gets downhill and finishes at the rim. His driving game is pretty good for a guy who doesn't have like explosive speed or quickness. He does have a unique ability to get to the rim. So here he comes off another DHO. He turns into a pick and roll, gets to the rim, past Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and finishes at the rim there. So that's the best defense in the league, one of the best defenses of all time. Two of their better defenders, arguably their best perimeter defender, and LaRavia splits them and gets to the rim there. He's got a nasty Euro step, as I mentioned earlier. You see he catches a kick-out pass here. The Bucks are in the blender. He gets by Taurean Prince, Euro steps him for a layup. Here's another Euro step finish from him. Gets the screen from Valanciunas. avoids disaster with Kawhi, and then Euro steps past Zubats for the layup. But again, he's just a smart player where here it's a give and go with MPJ, catches him sleeping, gets the layup. Like he's just constantly moving and passing. And I think he's just a really smart player who has a really good read on these things. Here's another cut from him where he pretends to be coming off a pin down from Valanciunas, cuts backward and gets the back cut for the dunk. So again, just a smart player who could do a little bit of everything. He can go coast to coast. You see here, he gets the defensive rebound, gets out in early offense, and does this spin move, another Euro step, finishes with the left hand. So he's got a bag. He's got some juice off of the dribble. And then another coast-to-coast play where he gets the rebound, gets out in early offense, pitches the ball to Zach LaVine, relocates for the three, and boom. Like he's just knockdown shooter if he's open. When the Kings used him as a 4, you could also use him in pick and pop scenarios. So here, like a lot of times teams would use centers against him. Steven Adams is in a drop, doesn't really want to get out to LaRavia, and bang, he hits the 3. Like that's something you could see with Austin or Luka or even LeBron. He screens for them, picks and pops. Like he can be that stretch 4. The craft in his game is something that really stood out. Good at attacking closeouts, good at making those shot pass decisions. Here are a couple examples of his passing. So you see he gets the ball from Monk, drives from the right slot, kicks it back to Monk at the top of the arc. It's a simple read, but not a read that every wing or forward can make. I think it shows a little bit of his off the dribble capabilities and the way that he sees the floor. And then the second one here, he goes and screens for LaVine, pops out, gets the ball, attacks the closeout, gets past Jimmy Butler, and then lasers the ball through the paint to Keon Ellis for the reverse layup. So a lot of his assists are swing passes, and he is more of that ball mover, connective piece offensively, but he is capable of putting the ball on the floor and making a play. As I mentioned, he's got a really high motor. So as you see here, he seals Jamal Murray, gets the inside position and taps the ball back in. He does this a lot. He's a really good offensive rebounder. In terms of weaknesses on the offensive end, you could sometimes struggle to finish over length. So as we see here, he cuts and gets a layup attempt contested by Jaden McDaniels and ends up missing it badly. We could also look at him trying to make a move off the dribble and just getting stripped by Campaign, who is not exactly a stopper. Here's another example against the Bucks. He likes the little ball fake where he pretends he's going to go left or right and then goes the opposite way. And this time just throws the ball out of bounds. And here's another one against the Rockets where he drives, gets cut off, spins back, and doesn't see Amen Thompson in the passing lane, ends up turning it over. So I think a couple areas for him to improve on are the finishing through contact, finishing over length and athleticism, and then also the decision-making on drives in terms of ball handling and passing. But I think those are things you can coach. Those are things you can develop. And I think more often than not, he makes good decisions with the ball on the offensive end. Now on the defensive end, let's look at some of the film. He had some pretty impressive defensive possessions against Stars. Here's him mirroring Tatum on a drive. He prevents him from getting to his step back and creating that separation. Then he pokes the ball loose. That's a remarkable stop. Here he is guarding Kawhi. And look at him battling Kawhi, recovers well, keeps his arms up and contests him. And like Kawhi's going to get to that shot because he's Kawhi, but that was a good defensive possession. Had a really impressive game against Jokic. Like he just pressures him, picks him at half court. Like how many times do you see Jokic get picked at half court? Then he gets out in transition and finishes with the layup. Here's another steal. This is him playing off the ball. The Kings are in a zone and James Harden just throws a lazy pass. LaRavia takes it the other way. Another possession against the Grizzlies, his former team. He just rips the ball from Brandon Clark and gets out in transition for the dunk. So I think you see a couple things there. He's got the quick hands, the quick decision-making defensively, but also the ability to turn defense into offense, get out in transition, finish with a layup, finish with a dunk. That's exactly what you want to see. And then a couple more defensive possessions in terms of strengths. Here he is stealing the entry pass to Jokic, and he was battling him. I'm going to going to replay the clip here. Then he gets the hard foul from Westbrook, but he's battling Jokic, he's fronting him, and then he steals this. And this is similar to what we saw with the Lakers against the Nuggets in that February win. We saw Vando and Rui and DFS have some success against Jokic, and then also what we saw from Alex Caruso against Jokic in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals. Now, in terms of defensive limitations, I think, again, it's worth looking at him against some of the quicker or shiftier players. Like, this is a line drive basically from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just blows by him and gets to the rim for a dunk. So obviously the help defense from Sacramento has to be better here, but LaRavia can't just get beat 40 feet out like this. And this is why I don't like him as much as a point of attack guy on guards. And the Shays, the De'Aaron Foxes, the Ja Morants, like the really quick, shifty point guards that can create separation and have elite speed. Those are the guys I'm more concerned with. And he was often used in that role with Sacramento, I think in part because of Sacramento's limitations defensively, but I also would point to the Lakers' limitations defensively and say, like, they'll probably need to use LaRavia in a similar way depending on what they do on the trade market. I think he's much more comfortable and much more effective guarding wings and bigs compared to guards. Here's another example where I think there's some good and bad in here. He's pressuring Giannis 94 feet and hounding him up the court, which you like to see. Again, good at ball pressure, but then just gets easily moved out of the way by Giannis en route to the dunk. So I think the intent is good, and I like the mentality. I like the approach. And I did use clips against Giannis and Shai, which I think shows like the caliber of player that he has trouble with, which most people are going to have trouble with Shai and with Giannis. So there's no knock on LaRavia, but it's more so to show like there are some guys that are just bigger, stronger, more athletic, quicker than him, and he will struggle in those matchups. But outside of that, for the most part, he holds his own on the defensive end. And I think that was one thing that really stood out. I think part of this is also just player development defensively. But that is something that you can coach. That is something that you can teach. That is something that can be improved upon. So I think overall, I am a fan of the LaRavia signing for this guy making not even half the non-taxpayer MLE. I think he projects as a legit rotation player. Like, I think he's going to be in at least the top 8, if not the top 7. Again, maybe the Lakers make a trade where they add a bunch of depth and he's a little bit lower in the depth chart. But for now, I expect him to be at least top 8, if not top 7, maybe even top 6, depending again how the bench looks. I think he's going to fit well around Luka, LeBron, and Austin as a shooter, as a cutter, as a player who's constantly moving and relocating into passing lanes and line of vision, which I think is an important thing. I think he's going to be a valuable offensive rebounder for the Lakers, someone who can thrive in transition. And then defensively, someone who can switch, can fit into JJ Redick's preferred defensive scheme, can defend. I would say probably 2 through 4, what would be my guess. I don't love him on 1s. I don't love him on all 2s either. Certainly 3s and 4s, some 2s. I don't think 1s. 5s, we saw Triple J, we saw Jokic, like maybe a little bit there if you are having him in an aggressive front and helping on the backside. But I really like the LaRavia signing. Again, I think this is a worthy gamble by the Lakers. 23-year-old first-round pick with pedigree, showed some flashes through his first 3 seasons. I think has really grown as a shooter and as an offensive player, and projects to be the type of guy who can scale into a bigger role and succeed. So I think that's the opportunity he's going to have with the Lakers, and I think he is going to thrive and make the most of it. LaRavia has big shoes to fill, and there is a certain level of pressure being the first signing, being the first call, and just being a Lakers role player in general. But I think in diving more into it, talking to people, I am more optimistic that he can fill the DFS role or fill 70 to 80% of it, while also bringing all these other things to the table that the Lakers need. They need more versatility. They need more skill and talent within the rotation. And I think LaRavia checks a lot of those boxes. But that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this new format. I will do something similar for the Lakers starting center, whoever that ends up being, whether it's a signing or a trade, if it's a new wing, like whoever the new acquisitions are, I will do some form of this, of deep diving, giving you the breakdown of strengths and weaknesses, and then showing some film to back it up. But I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for watching and listening. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I will talk to you soon.